Probably more of a pain when I'm doing your PowerPoint.
Okay, I'm gonna get started right away because I've been running over. So this is job expectations. I'm not gonna walk through everything that's on your job description, but I'll just tell you first that the manual for you guys is now out on the group page. Last year we put it on a disc and nobody could even find the discs when we needed them, so that was a huge waste. So we just put it out there on the group page. I will tell you later, for those of you that don't know where the group page is, I have a little thing on it. It has everything that you would need for any of your programs or anything. So it's a really good resource. Just remember to go to your group page if you use anything. But all of this is listed in the manual. And a lot of it we're going to go over in other sections, so that's why I'm just going to briefly touch on it. But your job as a role, as a whole, is really to be there for the residents and build community. And I think that's one of the biggest misconceptions about the job, is that you're there to police people and to enforce policies. And while that's kind of a secondary part of your job and what we ask of you, the main thing we need you to do is to be there for students and build community through programming, just through interaction with students, however it works the best for you, but be there for them. This just says be communicator, programmer, and role model. All those things play into building a community. Being a role model, I think it's hard for the RA sometimes, but you guys really do pretty much live in a fishbowl. Everybody looks at you because they know that you hold a leadership role, and so they're going to constantly be judging what you're doing. And it stinks sometimes because you feel like they're looking at you in everything. It's not just your school or what you're doing in the residence halls, but they see what you're doing kind of everywhere. And so just be a role model. Like, show them, that you can do a good job in school, you can do a good job in everything you do, and just kind of be a good role model. Okay, so just a quick rundown of these things. This is a job description which lists everything that we kind of expect of you. You guys can kind of read through it. A couple things that I'm going to touch on. Showing a sincere interest and friendliness to all students and letting them let their needs be known to me or to your RD. One of the biggest complaints that we hear from students, or that we hear about RAs, is just students saying, my RD or my RA does never have their door open, they never talk to me, I didn't hear from them ever until I got written up, and they're so mean to me, or they're just rude to me. So just be nice to them. If you're nice to them and you get to know them and you can relate to them and you work with them in other times, if you write them up, they're probably not going to care because they respect you and they know that's part of your job. But if you have a rapport with them in other areas, that's not going to be any big deal. Writing them up because they were loud or whatever is not going to be a huge deal because they respect you and they know you. But if that's the only interaction that you ever have with one of your residents, yeah, they're probably not going to like you real well. So just be friendly and do whatever it takes with observation reports, however you need to do it. If it's just knocking on their door or finding a common interest, or you notice that they like to do this, just talk to them. And really, they come here and their parents, the reason that they're here for a reason. They live on campus for a reason, whether they just like to live here, they like the activities, they like having more people around them. But we're here to facilitate that experience and make sure that it's a good one. The rest of it, I think you guys kind of know. So you guys work all of your schedules. Your on-duty schedule, you work the front desk hours, you do your programs, all of that fun stuff. You do your incident reports. This is all just like the paperwork that you do as part of your job, and it does take some time. The programming stuff we will go over in detail later. You sign in and out of the building, and you're allowed to be gone for 3 hours, but just be respectful of the other people in your building. If you notice that you go to check out or sign out and it's just you and one other person, and your RD might have rules on this, but just be courteous and call the other person and say, hey, I gotta run to Walmart, I gotta go grab something to eat, I just don't want you to be stuck here forever, and you know that person's been in the building forever. Just like be courteous to them and try to work with everyone, because it seems to be the RA that's stuck in the building all the time and never gets to go anywhere. So just try your best to be respectful for the people that you work with. Be an active member of RLA. And I'll just emphasize active. I don't want you guys just to show up to the meetings and just like sit there. Bring ideas, get them from your floor. Bryant built suggestion boxes for us over the summer that we'll put at the desks for a while to try to get some ideas of events that they want to do or things they want to see in their residence hall. So bring those to RLA and get the ideas for us. It'll make your life a lot easier if you can get people to RLA, because really the purpose of it is to bring ideas, programming ideas, ideas for the residence halls, anything. And if students are bringing them for you, it takes the pressure off you guys. So this is just a rundown of typical duties that you guys do. It's not all encompassing, or it doesn't include everything that you might do. But like at the beginning of school, check-in of students and check-out is really important, and it does take a lot of time. But even throughout the semester, kids are constantly moving from room to room or building to building, so you're going to be doing that. We'll go over the check-in process in detail, and you'll know how to do that. You submit all these reports, and each one of them is important. We'll talk about memos. I know that's one thing that you guys probably don't do a ton of, but it is really important, so we're going to talk about it a little bit later. And just so you know, if you're not sure if it requires a memo or you're not sure what to do, type up an email and send it. It doesn't have to be a formal memo. And if it's something that we're like, yeah, we didn't really need to know that, or it doesn't really change anything, we're just going to put it in a file and not think about it. But down the road, it could be more. Maybe it's a student that we're concerned about and they might need help, and we want to call them for whatever reason. It might mean something to someone else. We do pass those up the line from us, and Sherry or Erin, they see those too, depending on the nature. So if you just have an interaction with a student that seems kind of different, or they make a comment to you, just go ahead and write it up and send it to us. It doesn't have to be the formal memo. It can be just an email. Sponsor programs for all students, conduct floor meetings, support campus events. When I say support campus events, the ones listed are normally ours, but don't just limit it to our events. There's so many groups on campus that do events all the time, and if you guys can go and show your support of other groups, they're going to do the same to you. So be supportive, be just a good RA, and be a good student by going to those things and showing your support, and show your support to each other too, not just in your buildings, but everywhere. Maintain communication, attend disciplinary hearings. You do have to go to hearings. If you write someone up and they appeal, this is normally going to be alcohol. Most of the time people don't appeal noise violations, but it's happened. You're going to have to go as the RA that wrote them up. It's not always comfortable, and sometimes it kind of stinks, but we just do it. And we're always there. Your RD and me, if it's alcohol, we're always there to support you, and we're not going to let it get out of control. But sometimes it's just uncomfortable because you have to be there when you wrote them up. Assist with recruiting and contracting, select floor representatives. New for us this year, we are going to have some Senate representation from the residence halls, and so we're going to be handling and holding the election, and so we'll go over that whole process later on what we need you guys to do, but really it's going to be recruiting. We just want you guys to get the message out there so that we have a good group of people running, and we can get good representation. This is awesome for us because in the past we've always had senators that live in residence halls, so we, if there's things going on or there's issues or things they want to see, they usually bring it up, but it's not their formal responsibility in Senate. So it's nice to have representation from people that are there for that purpose. Attend RLA meetings and be an active member of RLA. So those are just typical things that we're going to ask you to do. Most of you know that changes depending on the week. Time obligations and on duty. On duty is defined as remaining in the residence hall or absent for short periods of time. It should be used for such things as programming, having your door open, or time to be available for residents. This is a great time to build community on your floor. If you guys have lobbies or common areas, just go hang out in them and read a book or do your homework there, because if they see you there, they're more likely to just come and ask you a question should they have one, or at least feel like you're available to them. Reside in your residence room after visitation hours are over. You do have to stay in your room, not just in your residence hall, but in your room after visitation hours. We just kind of need to know where you guys are. A lot of times, like if something is happening and say an RA goes and does a round and they need help, because you're the RA right down the hall, they might just go run to grab you, or it's on your floor, they're going to go grab you. And if you're not in your room, they might not have time to pick up the phone and call. They're just running there to get you. So that's why we need you in your room. And if things are going on your floor and you're not there, it's harder for us to get students help or do whatever we need to if you're not there. You work the front desk schedule in your building. It's different with every building because of the number of RAs we have, so you'll do that with your RD. Oh, just a note, You guys, with your phones and everything, you have your room phones, and I know a lot of you, like, maybe you're in the building, but you're not in your room, so you don't answer your room phone, or maybe you just see it ring and you don't want to do anything, so you don't answer your phone. So whatever reason, I know we all have your cell phones too, and your RDs, maybe that's completely fine with you. If you absolutely don't want the RD to call your cell phone, tell them that, but make sure that you're answering your room phone. You have to answer one or the other unless you're off, and if you're in a room, that's part of your job, so just make sure you're answering them. I know it gets frustrating for the RDs when they're like calling everyone and they're all supposed to be in the building, but nobody's answering their phones, and so they can't get help. So, okay, this again, this is kind of just a further discussion of the time or the job description. So you guys attend fall and spring training, monthly in-service trainings. The in-services now are not formal. We don't meet every Tuesday or every month on the first Tuesday. We don't do that anymore. We're doing in-services in your building. However, if any of you guys have ideas or you think that you would like to do some activity or type of professional development, let me know and we can arrange that. The needs are usually more specific to buildings, and that's why we went to more of a building type in-service, but sometimes there's still stuff that I think everybody could benefit from, so if you have ideas, let me know. RLA meetings are the second and fourth Tuesday at 11 a.m. in the Scottsbluff room, so you guys are all supposed to be there, unless you have a conflict that's school related, and then just let me know. Worker on duty shifts, again, I'm going to make a note about the rounds down here. You guys are supposed to do your rounds during the week at 7, 10, and midnight, and then on the weekend an extra round at 2. Most of you know that you're not doing them at exactly those times. But I'll say that when you're checking in and you're doing logs and everything, you go to the front desk to check in. I just want to make sure that everyone understands when you're going to the front desk to check in for your rounds, it's for your safety. It's not because we're checking it 99% of the time. The RD is not even going to look at those logs to be like, oh, Alyssa didn't do a round last night at 10 o'clock. They don't sit there and check those unless they have a reason to. It's for your safety. If you're an RA on 3rd floor and you start your round on 3rd floor and you never go to the front desk to check in, and God forbid something happened to you while you're on your round on 2nd floor, we have no idea that you were even starting your rounds or that you were on your rounds or where to even start to know where you were. So if you go to the front desk first, we know you started your round at 10:20. We kind of have an idea. We know that you at least checked in, so we know, kind of have some time frames on things. I'm not saying this has ever happened or that it will, but it's just more for your security. It's not that we're like trying to check up on you or be.
Sorry, just noticed this. The extra rounds on Friday and Saturday, not Saturday, Sunday.
Oh, yeah. Oh, because it's Sunday morning and. Right.
So Friday is the extra round, because Friday night is probably more of a partying night.
But the round occurs right on Saturday morning.
Oh, I guess,
too.
yeah, it would be
So
Sunday
I think
morning,
that's
yeah.
why it seems confusing, but it's the person on duty on Friday. It's
Sorry,
Saturday.
that didn't confuse
Yeah.
me. Great, this is the videoed one, so.
So then those are the days that we need you guys here. Sometimes we might add a day if it seems like it's going to be a busy day and we need people here. It all just depends on the year. The last couple of years we haven't had a huge event on Scholastic Day because it's been pretty quiet, but we still need you guys here. There's parents here, there's a lot of high school kids, there's a lot of younger kids, and we just need you around the buildings to kind of facilitate all those people being on campus. You guys are able to leave for the breaks, but what I'll say about this, your RDs usually let you guys like pick which breaks you're going to stay for to help with, but you're really supposed to stay for all of them to help do rounds or room checks. So make sure that you're being good about that and offering, like if you have to leave early one break, make sure that you offer to do the next one or work with your RD to do it, because it's not fair for the same people to get stuck doing room checks at break all the time. And if you happen to be staying over a break at any time, it's really, really helpful for you to tell your RD and offer to help if you can, because the RD is never going to leave. They're even more stuck here than you guys are. There's not 10 people in a building to help them out. It's just them, and there's, you know, other buildings and everything, but they don't get to leave for holidays. So if you happen to be here and you're not going anywhere, just let them know that you're willing to hold their phone or whatever it might be. And what that means for you guys when you're holding the phone over a break is if something happens, you call another ID. It's not like you're going to get called for stuff all the time. It's just someone has to be physically staying in the building holding the phone. so that they can call someone if there needs to be help. But it just would really help them out if they could go places sometimes or go to see their family over holidays because they don't ever get to do that. You can work up to 16 hours in an on-campus job. I have forms for you that I'll need you guys to fill out. I might start passing those around so we can get those done. You can't hold off-campus jobs if you have an internship that's required for your major. If you have something that's required for your major, you can go ahead and get the approval to me and for your major or whatever. But the important thing about this is you're reporting it to us. So if you have a job and you haven't had a form filled out, if you didn't do it at the meeting at the end of last year, I'll pass those too. If you guys want to take each one of these. Make sure to get it to me. We need you to get your schedule so that the RD can kind of plan around it. But more importantly, there's limitations on student workers and how many they can work, and there's not always great communication between the departments. Like I don't call over to admissions and say, hey, is Cassie working for you? Because we just don't, and so we have to make sure that we're recording what RAs are doing or working for us so we stay under the number of hours that you're able to work. And if you're an international student, there's even more limitations on how many hours, and the RA job accounts for what they consider 15 hours. So you can, I can't remember what I was going to say, I think there's 20 total. Okay.
During breaks, whatever.
Okay, that's what I thought. So there is more limitations on that. And before this, that's why we kind of had to make sure we were reporting that to make sure we were under the guidelines. So. But what we're passing around right now, there's a fall Walmart schedule and late night schedule just to put in your binder. We'll talk about it later. The conduct policy that we're going to talk about in a minute. Then your RA agreement, which kind of just outlines what you're given, what your responsibilities are. Read through it just quickly and sign it. And then there's one more. Oh, just if you need the RA employment form, I have them. They're up here on the desk.
So, oh, sorry, I just have a quick question.
Yep.
The credit towards a meal plan, that covers the block too, right? Because isn't the block cheaper?
So for senior RAs, it's just the total amount. They credit that back, and if you choose the lower plan, the block plan, you don't get a credit back, but it'll be completely paid for.
Okay, I just wondered, because I just remembered that last year I knew my meal plan was completely paid for.
Yep, it is. It's the same as last year. They just had to put a monetary value on it.
Right.
So that's,
okay, I was just curious. Thanks.
Yep. And for those of you that have noticed, your meal waivers may not be applied, but they will be. They're all turned in. They're ready to go. Financial aid just hasn't loaded them onto the system and run them yet. So I've gotten a lot of questions in the past couple weeks when I was trying to troubleshoot them, thinking they're already turned in, but they are there. They just haven't loaded them to the system yet. Okay, so time off. You guys all have 23 total days for a semester. 9 of them are weekend days, 14 are weekdays. So just try to plan for those as early as you can and use your days. Don't let it save them up till the end because you might not get them if everybody else does the same thing. So try as hard as you can to plan for them. It's hard with everyone in the building, but try to just make sure that you get like dates that you really need off, like on the calendar right away. And for sporting events, for CSC trips, anything like that, you can use them, but you have to, I mean, obviously you can go, but you have to use your days off. And it gets a little hard because some of our athletic teams, they travel a lot or they're gone a lot. So it really stinks for them because they have to use all of their days to go on their trips, and then they don't have a lot of other like time away. So it's hard, and we work with you guys the best we can if there's specific things that come up or whatever that we need to work around, we can. But we just have to keep it fair for all those that aren't involved in activities. Everyone has to have the same amount of time off. So. Okay, conduct policy. The master key policy, don't ever give the master key to anyone else. Make sure that when you go in, you check it out of the mailbox and then check it back in right away. Don't go do around with it. Don't leave it in your room. We've had it happen several times that it just gets left in your room and it's not really lost, but it sends us in a panic, and so we're calling everyone like, oh, we can't find the master key, what are we gonna do? And then it just happens to be in someone's room. So, if you take the key, if you lose it, there's a good chance you're gonna be let go. So just don't do that. Don't use it for storage rooms. You guys have separate storage keys, so just don't do that. It's really expensive to recore a building. A few years back, the master key for the entire campus was lost and they had to recore everything, and that is really bad. So just don't do it. It's just kind of scary. I know every time I take a master key, I'm kind of like, oh, you know, it's just a lot of responsibility. So I'll just make a note. The first one's about the master key. Second, well, first I'll say this too, but don't give it to a resident. I mean, I know some of them you might feel like you can trust, but you have no idea what they might do with it. So just don't give them the master key, even if it's to run down the hallway. Just you have to physically go let them in. And make sure that it's a resident of that room. Make sure you're checking their ID or if you know them. But a second note here, you guys aren't exempt from resident rules, and you guys are residents in the residence halls. You can't have alcohol in your room, and you can't have drugs in your room. If you do, you're probably not only going to get the fee from housing and the same policy that applies to residents, but you're probably going to be fired. So just don't do it. Any RA not complying with the rules and regulations set forth by the college, exhibiting conduct unbecoming a state employee, and not performing the duties as outlined in the job description, RA manual, or from your supervisor, may result in the following actions. And this is a guideline. I'll just say first that if you should do anything, this is kind of your warning, and if you do anything that's serious enough, you're going to be let go. You're not going to get the 3-step process. So normally, if it's something like, say you forgot to turn in your paperwork to me on time, I'm probably going to warn you and either email you or call you and say, hey, make sure you get this to me on time next time. So you may or may not get the written verbal warning. This is also a written and verbal warning during training. You guys are told everything during training, so that's also a warning. Written warning. Probation is a 4-month period that you're put on probation. That basically says you didn't do what we ask of you. You're going to need to meet with your supervisor every week to make sure that you're doing what you need to. You'll also have to attend spring training, the full spring training, not just part of it, and or a full fall training or not part of it. It just depends on how it's formatted. And then should anything happen while you're on probation, you'll be terminated. Again, like I said, if it's serious enough, we're not going to go through these steps and just say, oh, slap on the hand, you have drugs in your room. We're going to just go ahead and give you a written warning. You're probably just going to be let go. Compensation. So this is just a brief overview. For senior RAs, your expectation is 20 hours, not 15. But we expect you to work approximately 15 hours a week. Obviously, some weeks you might work 20 or 25 hours, and the next week you might work 10. This is an average of what we're expecting of you, but this is kind of how it's broken down. I don't think it's an exaggeration to say that sometimes it's really hard for you guys to get to 15 hours. If you actually sat down and documented your hours, which is sometimes what I want you to do in your head, is think about what you're really doing. You know, you do your weekly staff meetings, your programming, which doesn't happen every week. It might not happen every 2 weeks. It might happen once a month. But spread it out and plan for it and do your advertisement throughout the week so it kind of spreads out your workload. Your leadership roles in RLA, Hall Council, in services, your on-duty schedule. Some of it depends on what building you're in, how much you're working on duty. Observation of students the first 5 weeks. But constant observation is expected. Desk hours that you work, and then active on call, which includes meeting student needs, floor meetings, interaction, packages, assisting your AD, attending other RA programs, being a resource, attending RLA, cleaning the Mocktillen resource room, check-ins and check-outs, reports, assisting in maintenance, room check, and other duties assigned. Obviously, this is kind of what we're expecting. It's a huge summary of things that we're expecting to make up your time because the rest of it doesn't really take that much time. Packages and some of those kind of things. If your RD is asking for help and they ask you to do it, they need you to. They're not just, it's not really a question if they call you and say, I really need someone to go get a package or I need someone to go check on this resident. It's because they need to and it's also part of your job. So it's really, it makes me frustrated when I hear from the RDs, like I called all my RAs and nobody wants to do it. It's not really whether or not you want to do it. It is part of your job to help them to do things and they need your help and that's why they have RAs in their building is because they need so much help. So just try to help out, and obviously we're not gonna make you document your hours unless everyone's just slacking off and nobody's doing any of this or nobody's helping their ID, then we would probably ask you to start logging your hours. But this is just kind of a breakdown of how we're going to do it. I know I've had people, I don't think it's an exaggeration to say that sometimes it's hard for you to get to these hours. And I had people last year say, well, what should I do if I am in a week and I haven't really done hardly anything, I'm not on duty, I don't have a program. Go to other people's programs. Go be visible on campus. Go to other programs, even not RA programs. Go do something where you're out and you're about and you're talking to your residents, or you're doing something. Or ask your RD, do you have any projects you need me to work on? Maybe there's a bulletin board in your building that needs updated. Maybe there's something that you could do or clean behind the front desk, or do something for them that they're really needing done and they don't have time to do.
Or organize your mailroom or.
This is just an estimate for regular RAs. Senior RAs is not listed here, but basically the meal waiver, this lists what a current room waiver is and what your expected hours are. So this gives you an approximate of how much you're making per hour. It's just nice to see that, because I know it's really hard when you're getting it in the form of a waiver that it doesn't seem like you're being compensated at all, but you really are. Not to mention this is tax-free. And so it's just kind of nice for you guys to see that. Like, I am getting paid, it's just not all on a paycheck. Sorry, I'm kind of out of breath. I'm trying to talk fast. Do you guys have questions for me? Does it all kind of make sense? Yes.
Is it this year?
Yes, you can just. That is perfect.